Hey guys, this is Quinn again, and we're in my dorm room right now instead of one of the music practice rooms as usual. And this light is making me look very creepy, so see if I can't counteract that. That's even worse. These shadows. Give me a sec here. So, today and yesterday, I actually have some things to talk about. Yesterday I went to a Christian organization meeting thingy and and we studied some Bible verses. We studied Bible verses. I didn't even know you could study the Bible, like literally study it. But after that, I had some very philosophical talks with this one guy. His name was Taylor, and he was in charge. And uh, all my life, because of my past, because of the amount of harassment I went through when I was in elementary school and middle school, and and sometimes even high school. I've always had this negative image of myself, this uh, loathing, hatred for myself. Whenever I look in a mirror, I see that monster that I used to be back in middle school, and it scares me. Like, it doesn't look like anything's changed, you know. And ever since I started something called the rules, which the rules is this little notebook of literally rules. Like if you've seen Zombieland, you know his rules. I've done something similar, but only not just surviving zombies, but surviving life itself, like in the social world, that kind of thing. And ever since I began that, I have always one of my rules has always been don't look at yourself, look out at the world, because if you think about it, you have the universe, which is so big that our mind can't even fathom how big it is. I mean, it's just that big. It's we can't even fathom how big our own planet is, much less the universe. And this gigantic mass of stuff that is the universe, it's just huge. Now, take me compared to that. I'm not even a grain of sand to that. I'm not even a speck of dust. I'm so small compared to that. Just try and imagine it and you'll understand. Compare yourself to the universe and you'll realize how small you really are compared to everything that goes on. Then I decided, why keep looking at myself? Why keep looking at yourself? I don't really care much about how I look anymore. Now, I've been studying the world around me ever since then instead of myself. But every time I look in a mirror, anytime anyone asks me about myself, appearance-wise or personality-wise, I only remember that monster that I was back in middle school. And there's a story behind that, one that I don't feel like sharing at this moment. But after I told him all this, including the story, the tailor said to me, he said, "That's very interesting. I've never met anyone who said that to me. Like this is like me telling him my life story. For some reason, like something in the back of my mind just told me it's okay to talk to this guy. Like it was okay. I can just spill everything, and I did. And I'm semi. I am. I consider myself to be a Christian, but I'm not the usual type of Christian everyone thinks about. Like always going to church on Sundays. Like I haven't I haven't been able to have access to a church. Therefore, I've been working on the basic idea that the world is my church, and if God is my pastor, and if He wants me to learn anything, then He'll teach it to me Himself. I don't need to be good. I don't need. He sees. I mean, For some reason, God seems to think that I don't need to go into a small building in order to learn something. And because the rules themselves that I've written, I have been learning. There are 80 something rules in there right now. Not only that, but I showed the rules, or I told my past one of the counselors at one of the youth groups I used to go to about my rules, and he said, "You know what that sounds a lot like? The Bible, because a lot of stuff I'm saying in there is already written in the Bible, and trust me, I haven't read the thing cover to cover yet. I've barely read it at all. I mean, anything I've read through so far in there has been in chunks. So, obviously, what I'm doing right now seems to be working. And another one of my rules is, if it works already, don't mess with it. So unless something pops up saying, like, I need to do it or something bad's going to happen, and I don't really see much of a need for going to church or anything like that. I mean, it's just things like that. Like, another thing that I view differently than most Christians is most people that are Christian view the Bible as a history book. All these things actually happened. I'm not saying they didn't happen, but I'm also not saying they did. I mean, quite frankly, I don't give a crap whether or not they happen or not, because whatever happened a few thousand years ago happened. Whatever happened will always be the truth no matter what. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can't mess with the past. It's another one of my rules. The past no longer exists. Everything that had happened in the past no longer exists in this reality, in this dimension, in the present. It no longer exists. The words that I've already spoken no longer exist unless you replay it. But at that moment no longer exists. Those seconds going by, you can't do anything to change them. The ones that have already left, you can't change the events. So whatever events happened at the time of the Bible happened, whether it be dinosaurs or Jesus or Buddha or whatever. I'm obviously not a religions major, but whatever happened will always be the truth, and that's the only thing I really need to know about the past. So the way I view the Bible is not as a history book, because I know that God did not put us on this earth to squabble about what happened in the past. What I view the Bible is a guidebook, just like my book of rules. And whenever I'm in trouble and I need help, I just open it up to a random page and search those 2 pages for something useful, and something useful usually pops up. So that was my experience yesterday. After that, I felt a whole lot better. I woke up today feeling kind of down under the weather. I mean, I wasn't sick. I was just not depressed, but not happy. I was just kind of sad. Then I went up to the Swanee room, which is the lunchroom here where I usually eat. And every time I go into that place, it just reminds me of that friend that told me that I wore them down and they didn't want to hang out with me. And now, I mean, originally it was like, you can't hang out with me today or tomorrow, but apparently it's indefinitely, so, because they haven't contacted me since. I just kind of got up and walked away respectfully without blowing up at them or anything. I mean, when someone does that to you, you kind of want to blow up in their face, or you kind of want to break down. But what you need to do is just get up and walk away. You want to make it as little as painful for the other person across the table, because no matter how painful it is for yourself, hurting them is not going to change that. What you need to do is lessen the pain in total. The way you do that is just by getting up, saying nothing, remaining expressionless, and walking away. That way you don't hurt them. Or if you do, or if they are hurt, you don't add on to that pain. So I went up to the Swanee today, and I'm always nervous about running into her again because she always eats there as well. And once I made sure like the coast is clear on both sides, uh, I sit down and I remember something that I was talking about yesterday with Taylor. He's about how God really answered my prayer when I asked him to prove his existence to me, because that's the only way I could believe in him. Is I asked if I had proof, and he gave me proof. So that's another story. But I gave him a silent, not a silent prayer, but I kind of whispered it under my breath for things to get better between my friend and I. And so far they haven't, but after that, I felt like extremely relaxed in that chair I was sitting in, like really relaxed. Something like laid back, like stoner laid back. I've never done a drug in my life, so I'm not sure if that's correct, but for like half the day I felt that relaxed. I still miss her. I miss I miss both of my friends. I mean, the other friend is going away someplace for the weekend, so I'm going to be stuck here alone again. Especially after today, because today, you know how everyone's like, oh, go to events, you'll meet people. I went to an event just a few minutes ago, which is why this video is so late. And I think I'll be posting these videos much later than I have, so just to get as much information as possible about that day. But the event was like a board game night, and I played this awesome board game where you were like in a mansion, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was the most amazing board game I've ever played in my life. And I beat the game. I mean, at one point in the game, you end up betraying the other players, so and then you have to kill them. And I ended up being the betrayer, and the story changes each time you play. Like it depends on what room you're in, depends on yeah, it depends on basically on what room you're in and what item you found. Okay, the concept of the game is you're in this mansion and you're just searching it at first, just collecting items and stuff like that. And then once you roll the die a certain way, and if you get like a certain number of dice compared to a certain number of this type of card, something called the haunting. No, not the haunting. The haunt begins, and whoever rolled the haunt ends up becoming the betrayer, because the haunt makes it so that you have to kill the other 2 or 3 or 4 players, depending on how many people are playing. The haunt makes it so you have to kill them, and they have to kill you and whatever thing you created, or whatever thing you are. So this could range from you being like some tentacle monster to trying to kill this guy by finding his painting or something like that. And it creates this story. Once the haunt begins, it creates this story. And I gotta speed up because we're almost done here. It creates a story. And I ended up with like the story of Frankenstein. Like, okay, here's what happened. My character is a professor. Like, he's a teacher, he's a doctor. He looks like one of those mad scientist guys. So they're different characters. And I picked up this random companion along the way that's part of the game. It's just like a chance encounter. And it was like this raving madman. And I ended up betraying the other 2 after picking up the book. And that book turned out to be Frankenstein's lab notes. And I figured out how to reanimate Frankenstein himself. He pops up and he has to kill them. I end up killing them. The crazy guy is Igor. So I just thought that was awesome how that played out. And problem was, I met no one there. I mean, the 2 people I played with aren't even on campus. They were like 2 adults that just came for the game board night, because you're allowed doing that apparently. So I met no one new. So here I am, still alone on campus. This is Quinn Amos, signing off.